To me, literature is a way to get lost in another reality and gives the opportunity to explore and connect with various characters, storylines, and other readers. When I was first learning how to read, I loved books with pictures because it helped identify what object went with what word and also allowed me to believe I was with the actual characters in that environment. One of my all-time favorite children's books is Tomorrow on Rocky Pond by Lynn Razor, because in the story the family went camping at a cabin in the woods and did the same things my family did when we would go camping, which is still one of my most favorite things to do. As my reading got better, I moved into the Junie B. Jones series and probably read every single book in the series about 5 times. I absolutely loved everything about that series and loved reading all about the crazy adventures this girl, Junie B. Jones, had, who was similar to my age. My favorite book of the series was Junie B. Jones as a Party Animal, which told the story of her at her first sleepover where nothing seemed to go right. I laughed every time I read it, and I was even Junie B. Jones for Halloween one year. As I moved into later elementary school, I read the staples like Shug and the Magic Treehouse series, which I also loved to read. Moving into middle school, all Sarah Dessen books I loved, Along for the Ride especially. I also loved the summer series by Jenny Han, who is the same author of Shug. I could completely relate to all the female lead characters in these novels, what they were going through, and could really immerse myself into the plot. In addition, many of my friends read these books, so we all loved to trade and discuss them. Once I reached high school, I only really read the books assigned to us, but those were some of my absolute favorite books of all. Sophomore year, we read a separate piece, which actually was based on a prep school, Phillips Exeter Academy, in my home state. Although the story is tragic, I truly loved the character development and how it was written. Junior year, my favorite novel was Catcher in the Rye, because even though the narrator led me to be confused at times, I think the book truly breaks down the psyche of humans and explored a lot of ideas discreetly that I had never really read about before. I also loved The Secret Life of Bees senior year and A Glass Castle, which I read last year. They embodied plots that I had never experienced myself, but the characters offered a certain vulnerability about them that made it easy to connect with and have emotions from the novels. Overall, at each stage of my life, there's been a piece of literature that describes, embodies, and epitomizes where I've been at before, whether it's heartbreak, tragedy, pure joy, or a mix of all types of emotions. It has provided a true escape and will continue to shadow the remaining events that occur in my lifetime.
The textbook definition of literature is writings in prose or verse. Writings have excellence of form or expression in expressing ideas of permanent or universal interest. To a regular person, this means nothing. It is a very broad definition. Literature is interpreted differently by everyone. To me, I believe literature shapes who we are and how we live our lives. The book takes us to places unimaginable. Literature plots and morals shape our outlook we will have on society. A quote that best exemplifies what literature means to me is a quote by P.B. Shelley, a famous poet. It states, "A man too greatly good must imagine intensely and comprehensively. He must put himself in the place of another and of many others. The pains and pleasures of his species must be his own. The great instrument of moral good is the imagination." And I believe this is what literature does for us, young or old. It gives us the power to imagine.
Literature has a profound effect on our lives and can inspire us, and it can ignite a passion in readers. It can help be an escape to those looking for one and comfort those mourning or suffering. The famous poet William Wordsworth once said, "Poetry and all literature by extension is the breath and finer spirit of all knowledge. The poet binds together by passion and knowledge the vast empire of human society as it is spread over the whole earth and over all time." This quote perfectly sums up how literature can be a source of wisdom and comfort to the readers. The poem, The Prelude, describes the boy's life transition from adolescence to adulthood and focuses on the connection between humans and nature. Many thought the poem could have been about Wordsworth himself, which shows how literature can be an outlet for some people to express themselves as well. Every man's work, whether it be literature or not, is a reflection of himself.